Greetings and thanks for joining in for ALAT Chapter 2, the Animal Research Environment. Ensuring that animal research complies with federal mandates is not a simple task. Laws, regulations, policies, and guidelines govern the care and use of laboratory animals in programs of research, testing, and education. Some of these may be applicable to your animal program based on the types of animals used, the sources of funding, and the types of work performed. The learning objectives for this chapter are Animal Research Regulations, the development of regulations and guidelines, the guide, facility accreditation, federal regulations, other guidelines and regulations, bioethics and the 3 rupees principle, reporting concerns. There are several abbreviations from this chapter that you'll want to commit to memory. Some, like IACUC, we use frequently. Others, like the Animal Care Panel, ACP, you'll only see when prepping for an AALAS exam. These abbreviations represent critical components of the regulatory framework and best practices that govern the use of animals in research, testing, and teaching. They highlight the collaborative efforts of government agencies, professional organizations, and research institutions to ensure animal welfare and the integrity of scientific endeavors. This slide holds validated links to many of the resources discussed in this chapter. All are also potential documents for exam questions, with the guide being an absolute resource for exam questions. You would be wise to take a look. These organizations and documents form a tiered system of regulations, policies, guidelines, and principles that work together to ensure the humane treatment of animals used in research in the U.S. They reflect a commitment to ethical science and responsible stewardship of animals while acknowledging the necessary role of animal research in advancing human and animal health. The AWA and AWR provide the legal foundation, while the PHS policy and the guide build upon it, setting higher standards and providing detailed guidance. The U.S. government principles offer the ethical compass, emphasizing the importance of the 3 rupees. Understanding the roles of these organizations is vital for anyone involved in or interested in animal research, as they are central to ensuring both scientific integrity and animal welfare. The fight against animal cruelty has a long history. 1641, in Puritan Massachusetts, tourney or cruelty regulations were enacted, demonstrating early concern for animal welfare. 1828 to 1898, a wave of animal cruelty laws swept across the United States, with 14 states passing legislation. 1873, the U.S. Congress passed the 28-hour law, requiring rest and care for animals during transport. 1876, the Cruelty to Animals Act was passed in Britain, placing limits on animal experimentation. Fast forward to the mid-20th century. 1963, the Office of Laboratory Animal Welfare, OLAW, was established within the National Institutes of Health, NIH. Animal Care Panel, now AALAS, published the first edition of the Guide for the Care and Use of Laboratory Animals. The guide became the foundation for AALACI, a voluntary program for laboratory animal facilities. 1966, the landmark Laboratory Animal Welfare Act was passed, the first U.S. federal law specifically addressing the care and use of laboratory animals. It led to the creation of the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, APHIS, within the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, responsible for enforcing the Animal Welfare Act and its regulations. 1978, good laboratory practice regulations were established by the Food and Drug Administration, further strengthening standards for animal research. The Guide for the Care and Use of Laboratory Animals, often simply called the Guide, is the primary resource for animal care standards in U.S. research. It mandates humane animal use through detailed requirements covering personnel training, occupational health and safety, veterinary care, euthanasia, and even facility design. For example, the Guide specifies recommended temperature ranges for common lab animals, mice, rats, hamsters, gerbils, and guinea pigs, 20 to 26 degrees Celsius or 68 to 79 degrees Fahrenheit, rabbits, 16 to 22 degrees Celsius or 61 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and non-human primates, 18 to 30 degrees Celsius or 64 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Deviations from these ranges are considered problematic, as adherence to them is a condition of using animals in research. The guide mandates daily animal checks for food, water, bedding, and proper sanitation, including biomedical waste disposal and pest control. It also requires institutions to have an occupational health program, a well-maintained physical plant, addressing construction details like doors, windows, and drains, and an environmental housing and management program encompassing HVAC, lighting, noise, vibration, caging, and enrichment. Comprehensive veterinary care, preventative medicine, and documented animal procurement procedures are also required. A separate guide for the care and use of agricultural animals in research and teaching, the AG Guide, exists for agricultural animals used in research or teaching. It contains species-specific standards for animals like cattle, horses, sheep, goats, and swine, covering similar topics as the general guide. The guide uses specific terminology, musts, essentials for humane care, shoulds, strong recommendations, and mays, suggestions to consider. For instance, animals must be kept within the specified temperature ranges, should receive enrichment, and may be offered a choice of enrichment types. Institutions receiving federal funding, e.g., from NIH or NSF, must follow the guide. AALAC accreditation also necessitates adherence. Facility accreditation, AALACI.
AALAC International is a private, non-profit organization that promotes the humane and ethical treatment of animals in science through voluntary program assessment, accreditation, and education. Over 1,000 institutions in 50 countries have earned AALAC accreditation. AALAC's periodic external AALAC International is a private, non-profit organization that promotes the humane and ethical treatment of animals in science through voluntary program assessment, accreditation, and education. Over 1,000 institutions in 50 countries have earned AALAC accreditation. AALAC's periodic external assessment assures the institution and the public that they are remaining diligent, staying current with regulatory requirements and evolving industry standards, and maintaining a high level of excellence. AALAC accreditation safeguards quality animal care and scientific validity. AALAC International is where science and responsible animal care connect.
The Animal Care Panel, ACP, which later evolved into the Association for Assessment and Accreditation of Laboratory Animal Care International, AALAC International, initially established a committee to evaluate how well-accredited institutions adhered to the guide for the care and use of laboratory animals. This process involves rigorous peer review. Accredited institutions undergo comprehensive assessments based on the guide, a detailed document outlining best practices for animal care and use in research. These assessments often involve extensive program descriptions, exceeding 400 pages in some cases. AALAC International is a private, non-profit organization. Although accreditation is voluntary, it is highly valued and often considered essential for securing research funding. The assessment process includes a thorough site visit conducted every 3 years. During the assessment, AALAC International evaluates the institution's adherence to federal, state, and local laws and regulations related to animal care. It also assesses compliance with the standards outlined in the guide and other relevant guidelines, such as the Guide for the Care and Use of Agricultural Animals in Research and Teaching, AG Guide. In Europe, the landscape of animal research regulations has expanded. The European Convention for the Protection of Vertebrate Animals Used for Experimental and Other Scientific Purposes, ETS 1123, and Directive 2010/63/EU of the European Parliament II and Council have introduced additional regulations that institutions must comply with. Federal regulations, the Animal Welfare Act and regulations. The Animal Welfare Act, AWA, and its regulations are the primary federal laws governing the humane care and handling of animals in the United States. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, is responsible for implementing and enforcing these regulations. Some of the care and use standards they assess are housing, animal sales and dealer licensing, animal transportation, research facility registration, and the identification of dogs and cats. 1970 saw one of several amendments. The name was changed to the Animal Welfare Act, and its scope was expanded to include other warm-blooded animals used in research, such as primates, rabbits, and guinea pigs. Note that the AWA doesn't cover all animals. It specifically excludes birds, rats, and mice bred for research, horses not used for research, farm animals used for food or fiber production. Furthermore, the AWA applies to specific categories of animal use, including research facilities, pet dealers, but not all pet stores, animal exhibitors, with some exclusions. The animal welfare regulations are the specific rules and standards that govern the humane care and handling of animals covered by the Animal Welfare Act, AWA. These regulations are detailed and provide specific guidance on various aspects of animal care. The AWRs are quite extensive. Among the many standards the AWR require include housing, feeding, watering, handling, sanitization, ventilation, transportation, separation of species, and veterinary care. Who regulates the AWA and AWRs? Veterinary medical officers, VMOs. They ensure compliance with the Animal Welfare Act, AWA, a very complex task. The USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, APHIS, VMOs conduct unannounced inspections of research facilities at least one a year using the Animal Care Inspection Guide. APHIS prioritizes the humane care and well-being of animals. During these visits, VMOs assess various aspects of the facility and its operations, including facility conditions and animal housing, research protocols and procedures, documented training records for personnel, IACUC meeting minutes and records, animal health records, veterinary care and husbandry, thorough record keeping. VMOs have the authority to examine all aspects of the facility's operations to ensure adherence to the AWA and its regulations. It's important to note that the AWA covers both live and dead animals, ensuring that humane practices are followed throughout all stages of animal use. Inspections. Ensuring registration. Research facilities working with USDA-covered species are required to register with the USDA. The institutional official, IO, is responsible for ensuring compliance with all regulations. Key requirements include having an active and functioning institutional animal care and use committee, IACUC, providing comprehensive training to all staff who work with animals, including those involved in shipping and sales, maintaining accurate and complete records of all animal care and use activities, including sales and project usage, demonstrating compliance with housing standards, sanitization standards, veterinary care, dog exercise requirements, NHP enrichment, pain and distress alleviation, looking for alternatives to painful/distressing procedures, single major surgeries per animal, annual report. Research facilities must submit an annual report to the USDA that includes the following. Location of all facilities. This includes any location where animals are housed, transported, or held. Number of animals used. The report must specify the number of animals used by species in the previous year, sorted by pain category C, D, and E. Category C, procedures causing minimal or momentary pain or distress. Examples include quick injections or blood draws that typically do not require sedation or anesthesia. Category D, procedures causing moderate to significant pain or distress, requiring the use of analgesics, anesthetics, or tranquilizers. Category E, procedures causing moderate to significant pain or distress, where the use of analgesics, anesthetics, or tranquilizers would negatively impact the research outcome or data interpretation. This category is often highly scrutinized and can be controversial. The vast majority of procedures are Category C, procedures with momentary pain or distress. I've enclosed an example of an annual report, ONPRC and OHSU's from 2023. They didn't have any Category E procedures. They did have a decent number of Category D procedures involving multiple species. Remember, though, that those animals are provided pain relief. Federal Regulations, Institutional Care and Use Committee, IACUC. 1985 saw a major revision of the AWA, thanks to the Improved Standards for Laboratory Animals Act. This introduced stricter standards for animal care. It also introduced the requirement of establishing institutional animal care and use committees, IACUCs. The amendment established IACUCs as mandatory oversight bodies within research institutions. These committees are responsible for reviewing and approving animal use protocols, ensuring compliance with the AWA, applicable laws, regulations, policies, and guidelines, and conducting regular inspections of animal facilities. IACUC composition is based on funding sources. The USDA/APHIS Animal Welfare Act dictates that an IACUC be appointed by the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, of the institution and coordinated by a chairperson. The IACUC must have at least 3, but typically 5, members, with no more than 3 individuals coming from the same unit. These include chairperson, a doctor of veterinary medicine, DVM, with experience in laboratory animal medicine. A non-affiliated member, someone with no connection to the facility and no prior experience working with laboratory animals. This member represents the general public's interest. The PHS policy IACUC looks a little different, having at least 5 members. A doctor of veterinary medicine, DVM, with experience in laboratory animal medicine. A practicing scientist actively involved in conducting animal research. A non-scientist who is naive to the scientific method. A non-affiliated member, someone with no connection to the facility and no prior experience working with laboratory animals. This member represents the general public's interest. Lastly, the guide has its own requirements, a mix of the two. A doctor of veterinary medicine, DVM, with experience in laboratory animal medicine. A practicing scientist actively involved in conducting animal research. A non-scientist who is naive to the scientific method. A non-affiliated member, someone with no connection to the facility and no prior experience working with laboratory animals. This member represents the general public's interest. Regardless of composition, the IACUC reports to the institutional official, IO, which is often the Chief Executive Officer, CEO. The IO requires proper authority to provide resources to stay within compliance. Federal regulations. IACUC and the USDA. The USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, APHIS, enforces the Animal Welfare Act, AWA. How does APHIS do this? Through unannounced site visits, they assess IACUC facility inspection reports and IACUC program reviews. Then what? If violations are found, the USDA inspector submits a report. These violations must be corrected. Or what? In some cases, the USDA can stop all or some research projects if the violations aren't corrected in a timely manner. Reports are public information due to a federal law, the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA. Now, let's talk about the Public Health Service, PHS, policy on the humane care and use of laboratory animals. The PHS policy is a federal mandate, but only for federally funded research. It has similarities to the Animal Welfare Act, AWA, in terms of its requirements and structure, as both policies are responsible for overseeing and ensuring compliance with animal welfare regulations. However, there are key differences. PHS policy defines what an animal is differently. It applies to all live vertebrates used or intended for use in research, research training, experimentation, biological testing, or related purposes. Unlike the AWA, this includes birds, rats, and mice bred for research, as well as ectothermic vertebrates such as fish, amphibians, and reptiles. Also, the composition of the Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee, IACUC, differs between the two. The AWA requires a minimum of 3 members on the IACUC, while the PHS policy requires a minimum of 5 members. Other difference includes the requirement for an occupational health and safety program for all staff working with animals under the PHS policy. Additionally, the PHS policy mandates compliance with the U.S. government principles for the utilization and care of vertebrate animals used in testing, research, and training. We'll explore these principles in more detail shortly. PHS and Office of Laboratory Welfare, OLAW. The Office of Laboratory Animal Welfare, OLAW, at the National Institutes of Health, NIH, is responsible for the general administration and coordination of the Public Health Service, PHS, policy on the humane care and use of laboratory animals. To comply with the PHS policy, the institutional official, IO, must submit a document called the Animal Welfare Assurance of Compliance Statement to OLAW. This document, often referred to as the PHS Assurance, provides a detailed description of the institution's program for the care and use of animals, outlining its commitment to humane animal care and research practices. The Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee, IACUC, plays a crucial role in demonstrating compliance. The IACUC is responsible for preparing an annual report for OLAW, which documents the institution's adherence to the PHS policy throughout the year. The Animal Use Protocol. The IACUC approves all vertebrate animal work through an Animal Use Protocol, also sometimes referred to as an Animal Study Protocol. The IACUC may ask for more information or request changes to the protocol before it is approved. Importantly, animal work cannot begin until the protocol has been formally approved by the IACUC. The protocol itself is a standardized form developed by each institution. The principal investigator, PI, is responsible for describing and justifying their proposed research project within the protocol. The protocol serves as a crucial document for regulatory compliance. Each protocol typically has a unique numeric identifier. All animals assigned to a specific protocol are identified with that unique number on their cage cards and in their health records. Each individual protocol may have unique care requirements for the animals involved in that particular study. The U.S. government principles for the utilization and care of vertebrate animals used in testing, research, and training. AACA, the U.S. government principles. Applies to all warm-blooded vertebrates. Applies to all federally funded studies. IO is responsible for 9 principles. Compliance. All procedures must comply with the Animal Welfare Act and other relevant regulations. Scientific relevance. Research must have a clear scientific purpose and benefit human or animal health or advance knowledge. Animal selection. Use the minimum number of animals and consider alternatives like simulations or in vitro methods. Minimizing pain and distress. Avoid or minimize discomfort and pain whenever possible.
Anesthesia and analgesia. Use appropriate sedation, analgesia, or anesthesia for painful procedures.
Euthanasia. Humanely euthanize animals experiencing severe or unrelievable pain or distress. Living conditions. Provide appropriate housing, feeding, and veterinary care for all animals. Personnel qualifications. ensure that all personnel are qualified and trained in animal care and handling. Exception review. Any exceptions to these principles must be reviewed and approved by an independent committee, such as the IACUC. Federal regulations. The Good Laboratory Practices. The Good Laboratory Practices, GLPs, are a set of regulations that apply to both animal and non-animal research and safety studies. These regulations are enforced by the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, to ensure the validity and reproducibility of safety testing data. The FDA's GLPs primarily focus on studies related to human or veterinary drugs, food additives, medical devices, and biologics. The EPA has specific GLPs for studies involving pesticides and toxic substances. To meet GLP standards, animal facilities must adhere to numerous requirements. In addition to the basic guidelines for animal care and welfare, these requirements include comprehensive personnel training. All staff must receive adequate training, and training records must be maintained for each individual. Quality Assurance Unit. A dedicated quality assurance, QA, unit must be established to independently monitor all phases of the research process to ensure compliance with GLPs, Standard Operating Procedures, SPs, and the study protocol. Standard Operating Procedures, SOPs. Detailed SOPs must be written for all husbandry and scientific procedures, ensuring consistency and reproducibility of methods. Standard Operating Procedures, SPs. Standard Operating Procedures, or SOPs, are written instructions that outline how to perform a specific routine activity. These procedures are approved by management and are used to ensure consistency and accuracy across all operations. SPs are essential documentation and are required by several federal regulations, including Good Laboratory Practices, GLPs. They can describe general procedures within the facility, such as housekeeping tasks and animal husbandry practices. Examples include SOPs for cage washing procedures, feed storage, and animal room sanitation. They can also address procedures specific to a particular study or research project. Examples include SOPs for animal breeding protocols, blood collection techniques, and specific surgical procedures. SPs ensure consistency in how procedures are conducted, which is crucial for the validity of research findings. All animals involved in a study should be treated and handled in the same manner to ensure reliable and reproducible results. SPs must be regularly reviewed and updated to reflect any changes in procedures, methodologies, or regulatory requirements. Other guidelines and regulations. The AVMA guidelines for the euthanasia of animals. Some research animals require euthanasia during or at the conclusion of a study. It's crucial that euthanasia be performed with the utmost respect and in a manner that minimizes pain and distress. The American Veterinary Medical Association, AVMA, has developed comprehensive guidelines for the euthanasia of animals. These guidelines outline acceptable with conditions, and unacceptable methods of euthanasia for various animal species. Both the Guide for the Care and Use of Laboratory Animals and the PHS policy mandate that animal facilities adhere to the euthanasia guidelines outlined in the AVMA document. Other guidelines and regulations, state, local and institutional regulations and policies. In addition to the federal regulations that establish standards for animal care and welfare, it's important to remember that there are also state and local laws that govern animal research. Furthermore, academic and research institutions have their own internal policies and procedures for scientists and technical staff who conduct animal research. It is crucial for researchers to be fully aware of all applicable regulations and policies at the city, county, state, and institutional levels to ensure compliance and ethical conduct in their work. Bioethics. Bioethics is the study of the social and moral implications of using live animals in research. A central question in bioethics is how to balance the potential benefits of animal research with the ethical considerations of using animals in scientific investigations. To maintain this balance, biomedical researchers must adhere to the following key principles. Scientific relevance. All animal research must be scientifically sound and appropriate. Animal well-being. Animals should be maintained in a way that maximizes their physical and psychological well-being. Minimizing pain and distress. Every effort must be made to avoid or minimize any pain and distress experienced by research animals. Euthanasia. If an animal's pain or distress cannot be relieved, humane euthanasia must be performed to end their suffering. The 3 rupees. Concerns about the welfare of laboratory animals are not solely the responsibility of government agencies. Scientists and researchers within the fields of biomedical, academic, and pharmaceutical research also play a crucial role in ensuring animal welfare. 1959, 2 English scientists, William Russell and Rex Birch, introduced the 3 rupees principle, a framework for promoting more humane experimental techniques and reducing the use of animals in research. The 3 rupees stand for replacement. Whenever possible, researchers should explore and utilize non-animal alternatives, such as cell cultures, computer simulations, and lower forms of vertebrates or invertebrates. Reduction. When animal use is necessary, the number of animals used should be minimized to the absolute minimum required to obtain statistically valid results. Refinement. All efforts should be made to refine research procedures to minimize pain, distress, and suffering for the animals involved. The 3 rupees principle serves as a guiding framework for ethical and responsible animal research, emphasizing the importance of minimizing animal use and maximizing animal well-being. Here's a video to see the 3 rupees perspective from a researcher. Researcher.
Welcome back to our interview series. Today we are exploring the ethical considerations of scientific research with Marvin from Scigen. Marvin, thank you again for joining us.
It's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to discussing this important topic.
Marvin, what are your thoughts on balancing the welfare of laboratory animals with the pursuit of scientific research goals?
Balancing animal welfare with scientific research goals is a critical aspect of modern research ethics. The 3R principle introduced by Russell and Birch in 1959 provides a valuable framework for achieving this balance. Firstly, we aim to replace animal experiments with alternative methods whenever possible, such as in vitro models or computer simulations. This minimizes the use of animals while still obtaining valuable data. Secondly, we refine experimental procedures to reduce pain and distress experienced by animals. This involves optimizing protocols, providing anesthesia and analgesia, and utilizing non-invasive techniques when feasible. Lastly, when animal use is unavoidable, we strive to reduce the number of animals used to minimize unnecessary for scientifically valid data. By carefully planning experiments, optimizing statistical methods, and sharing data, we avoid unnecessary duplication and minimize animal suffering.
Thank you for highlighting the importance of the 3R principles in ensuring ethical research practices.
It's crucial to uphold ethics standards while advancing scientific knowledge.
Reporting concerns. Anyone who observes or suspects animal misuse or noncompliance with regulations has a responsibility to report it. While some concerns may arise from misunderstandings, it's important to address them promptly. The initial step is usually to report concerns to your supervisor. Institutions also offer anonymous reporting options, such as forms or hotlines, to protect the identity of the person reporting. If the concern is not adequately addressed at the institutional level, you can escalate the issue to the IACUC, the USDA Animal Care Section, or the Office of Laboratory Animal Welfare, OLAW. It's important to remember that reporting concerns about animal welfare is protected by whistleblower policies. By following the proper reporting channels, you can help ensure the humane treatment of animals in research and promote compliance with all relevant regulations. Summary: this presentation covered the history of animal research, the modern research process, and the ethical considerations and regulations surrounding animal research. It emphasized the importance of adhering to ethical standards, ensuring humane treatment of animals, and maintaining public trust. It also emphasized the importance of proper training, documentation, and communication to ensure compliance with regulations and maintain high ethical standards in animal research. That wraps up the Chapter 2 content. Now for a quick quiz. These questions are designed to help you see if there's anything you'd like to review again.